Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630. WMAL.
It is 8:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Neiman's off, and we are joined here for the next few minutes by Tisha Thompson, a Fox 5 WTTG reporter who's in studio to talk about a story that I saw on the website, and it just caught my eye, and I said, that is a great story. We need to call old Phil Metlin over there, the news director, and see if I can get Tisha to come over. And here she is, appearing as if by magic. And the story has to do, Tisha, with members of Congress who lease cars at taxpayer expense, and you wouldn't believe what you and I are paying for some of these leases. It was quite surprising.
I think most people have no idea that these congressmen and these congresswomen are even leasing cars instead of buying cars out of their own pocket. They make over $170,000 a year, so people just assume they have cars that were purchased privately, but actually a lot of these guys are taking out automobile leases, and they're using money from their office budgets, their congressional office budgets, which is taxpayer dollars, to pay for these leases, and they are pricey.
Yeah, and let's talk about a few of them, if you don't mind. Kevin McCarthy, a Republican from California, third highest ranking Republican on the Hill, he has quite an expensive lease.
Yes, it's over $700. And the reason why we really focused in on him is because he has been the face of a lot of these news conferences this week about the debt ceiling and the budget cuts. He is the guy who's saying we have got to cut down spending, but he's never talking about how much he's asking you to pay for his car lease. And it's a nice car. It's a Lincoln. It's a Lincoln MKZ.
Lincoln Hybrid MKZ. David Dreyer, $598 a month. Mary Bono Mack pays $749 a month for her lease. But it's equal opportunity. They're Democrats who do this
equal
as well.
opportunity offenders, that's for sure.
Eleanor Holmes Norton in the District of Columbia has a nice little Toyota Hybrid.
Yes, and she's the only one here locally in D.C. She's obviously the D.C. representative, so she has this car. None of the guys in Maryland or Virginia, we looked at them, have automobile leases. Most of these folks use these automobile leases in their home district, but for Eleanor Holmes Norton, her home district happens to also be where Congress hangs out.
Is located.
So it isn't even a car that's in D.C. if they live far away. It's in their home district where they could be using their own car.
Right. So I talked to Chip Kravick, who is a big-time Tea Party favorite, who, of course, campaigned and said, I'm going to cut spending in D.C., and really overturned a major incumbent veteran in Minnesota and got a lot of press for that. And when I talked to his office, he has this Chevy Equinox up there in Minnesota in his home district that he drives around. It's another hybrid. A lot of these guys have hybrids because there is a rule in Congress to get good gas mileage. Right. That's one of the criteria, but of course that makes these cars more expensive. Another reason...
Hold it. Chip is paying $1,000 a month?
$1,000 a month. He put $1,700 down.
In a lease?
Right. Okay. So he put $1,700 down for a down payment, his guy says, and then he spends another $1,000 a month. The reason why they're more pricey, the spokespeople say, is because they can only take the lease out for their 2-year term. Most leases are 3 years, so they pay a premium. But they are so expensive. There's some guys out there that are getting $1,400 a month leases.
And a lot of them pay extra because they go beyond their mileage, right?
Right. So there's a guy, Rodney Alexander, out of Louisiana, Congressman Rodney Alexander. He put a $20,000 down payment down on a car in December, but he also had to pay an excess $5,000 because he got extra mileage on his previous lease, but now his lease this year is only about $160.
Maybe I'll go buy him a used Subaru for
Well, I mean,
$5,000.
a lot of people have said that to us. I mean, a lot of the feedback we're getting is, why aren't they buying their own cars out of their own pocket? It's not like they're impoverished. They're making over $170,000.
Quick question on this. Is this the kind of thing where they're making a decision to spend this large amount of money out of a set-aside budget anyway, so it would be going to something else regardless?
It would. We interviewed Congressman Jared Polis out of Colorado. He got on the House floor last week and said, come on, before we ask the people to, the American people to make a sacrifice, why don't we look at ourselves and see what we can sacrifice? His argument is, instead of spending this money on a car, you could be spending this money on somebody who works in your office who is helping people get their veterans benefits, helping people get their passports. I mean, that's what Congress is supposed to be doing.
The member from Puerto Rico, Pedro Pierluisi.
That's right. That you pronounced it right.
Did I get it right?
Yep.
I'm astonished at how much he's paying every month for his 2008 GMC Yukon Hybrid.
That's right. He pays $1,400 a month.
Ow!
Now, that is the highest amount of any member of Congress.
That's like a mortgage in half of the United States.
You know what? It is. It is. He actually is the only person that we contacted, and we contacted over a dozen of the biggest spenders, who was willing to talk on camera. And he's real upfront about it. He says he needs this car. It's a business car. He uses it in Puerto Rico. And of course, Puerto Rico is like Washington, D.C. It's not your average sized representational district because they don't actually have a vote. They're very similar to how Eleanor Holmes Norton operates in D.C. So he says he has over 3 million constituents that he needs to travel around Puerto Rico and visit. He says the $1,400 is not just like a monthly car payment. It includes maintenance. It includes insurance. It's still pretty pricey.
Yeah.
$1,400 a month.
And the larger point is that you and I, when we take a job, we don't get a car at company expense.
Well, it's just a perfect illustration of when you're spending someone else's money, it's real easy to spend a lot of it and to not make the cost-benefit analysis that you would in your own life.
What's been the response to this story?
People are not happy.
Yeah, I got that impression.
Yeah. We went to Capitol Hill. You know how everybody hangs out at the Capitol Visitor Center, and we got people from all over the United States. It's actually a really good place to get the measure of how people feel about government these days, because you get Democrats, you get Republicans, you get Tea Party, you get super liberal, and you get them from all over. And we interviewed people of all ages, all demographics. Nobody liked it. Not just the $1,400. I mean, there are guys here who are doing $400 a month, and nobody thought that these guys ought to be paying for these cars with taxpayer dollars.
I'm betting that members of the Morning Majority have an opinion about this, and so we're going to take calls at 1-888-630-WMAL. The Morning Majority, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham. We have phone calls lined up, Mary Catherine, and Tisha's going to hang around in case we have any more questions here about this story that members of Congress are taking some of their taxpayer-provided budget and leasing cars, and some of them quite expensive. I see all these ads on TV. You can get a lease for $139.
Right. That's what I keep wondering. I thought you could get a lease for $200, $300.
And some of these leases are like $7, $8, $1,000.
I have one that you might really enjoy.
Okay,
that I didn't put in the story. Jesse Jackson Jr. His lease is $1,258 a month.
Oh my gosh!
He's a Democrat out of Illinois. In case people weren't sure where he's from.
Well, what do you think about this? Phone callers are lining up to offer their opinions. Let's go to Mark in Arlington. What do you say, Mark?
Morning. Good morning. I think it's just terrible. Whatever happened to the kind of politician we used to have, like Jack Kennedy, who never took a salary? He was a millionaire. He was independently wealthy, like most of these people in Congress and upper levels of government, and he didn't take a salary. So why aren't our current leaders making sacrifices like that?
All right, fair question. Let's go to Tom in D.C. Tom, what do you think?
It's disgusting. It goes along with what I say about Congress. There's no feeling of service to country. Maybe that goes along with ending the draft 40 years ago. Most of these people in Congress never served in the military. They can't be conciliatory to each other, let alone the American taxpayer. And you know what? I see people in D.C. getting angry. When we see these middle-level Washingtonians being escorted by black Suburbans, there's not people moving over for them anymore. How many of these politicians need to be escorted by Secret Service Suburbans and then have a limousine, too?
Yeah, some of those are in the executive branch as well. Let's go to Michael in Upper Marlboro. What do you say, Michael?
How you doing? No, we shouldn't be paying for them leasing their cars. But, I was reading a story the other day that the Obamas had a Gulfstream take their dog to Maine or something. They didn't want to fly it on Air Force One, so They had a Gulfstream ticket.
Yeah, we'll check into that. I haven't heard that one for sure, but that sounds a little suspicious. I don't know. We'll check, though. We'll check. Maybe there's a good investigative piece for you.
I will go figure that one out, that's for sure.
All right, let's go to line 4, Bill in D.C., very quickly.
Hey, I don't agree with the members running the cars. I understand they can't really change, at least easily, the constraints about the term of the lease or the gas mileage requirements. But I guess my point is, I wonder how many of the folks out there who are so outraged about this, have a business car that they get, whether they're a salesman or depreciate their individually owned car as a business expense.
All right.
In Virginia, you can do that for taxes.
All right. All right. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Greta in Bethesda finally. Hello, Greta.
Yes, I think that if you're talking about some money that is going to get spent one way or the other, this is chump change. I think we should be looking at things that are very significant, because I think Americans are too smart to get worked up about window dressing. Granted, it is indicative of what's going on, but why not go after something big like all the grants the EPA grants?
Tisha, your thoughts on that?
Brian, I can say at first it does seem like chump change because you're talking about $1,500 versus trillions and trillions of dollars. But when you add up all of the people that are leasing cars, in just 3 months they spent $500,000. And
so
then when you look at that in 2 years, or when you look at that at a year long, suddenly it's $2 million. I mean, that's the FAA fight is over what? I think it's like $16 million. So these guys are spending $2 million a year on cars, and yet we are losing $1 billion in revenue because they're fighting over $16 million.
Well, for me, it's about do as I say, not as I do.
I think that's how a lot of people feel about it, for sure.
Tisha, it's great for you to come over here from Fox 5 just up the street.
Having me.
Send my regards to everybody at my old stomping grounds at Channel 5 and say hello to your mom, Lee Thompson.
I will. She adores you. So
all right.
Thank you so much for having me.
And
we
the
really
feeling is
appreciate
mutual. We'll have you back